Welcome to the Pacific Northwest, a land of pristine coastlines, towering trees, and world-class seafood. Hi, I'm Brandon, and I recently had the pleasure of exploring this breathtaking region with my girlfriend Willow and my good friends Dion and Maddie. This is the story of our unforgettable road trip through this stunning corner of the United States. In the last episode, we left our home in Reno and began to make our way up the coast. And while walking the busy streets of San Francisco, enjoying stunning coastal sunsets in Newport, and eating our weight in clam chowder was absolutely wonderful, it was time for us to leave Oregon and take a break from our fast-paced trip to experience the natural beauty of one of Washington's many national parks. I gotta say, it gets kind of tiring loading the vehicle every time we gotta go somewhere. Good morning, y'all. Another early morning for us today, but for good reason. Our original plan was to drive over along the coast to Cannon Beach in Astoria, then head up to Seattle. But unfortunately, that's like a 5-hour drive, and that's a little more driving than we're trying to do today. So instead, we opted to drive to Mount Rainier, which is about 2 hours away, enjoy the national park, and then head another hour and a half or so to Seattle. I think it's a great option. Mount Rainier looks absolutely stunning, and we're all really excited to explore this park. We're gonna head over to Voodoo Donuts for our last stop here in Portland, and then make the drive over to Mount Rainier. I'll see you guys there. Unfortunately, Portland's famous Voodoo Donuts actually ended up being in the opposite direction, so we stopped by a donut shop near Airbnb instead. While it wasn't exactly what we had planned, I'm never going to be upset about starting my day with a warm apple fritter. After breakfast, we drove a few hours north to Mount Rainier National Park, where we ate what was probably the saddest meal of the whole trip. On today's menu, sandwiches that look like pancakes. There you go. We began our visit at the southwest end of the park, where we stumbled upon a waterfall cascading down the cliffside. It was a bit busy, but there were plenty of spots to view the falls, so it never really felt crowded. It's been a little smoky so far, but otherwise, it's beautiful. Next, we took a stroll through a vibrant meadow where we got some of our first views of the massive 14,000-foot peak that dominates the horizon. Mount Rainier, also called by its Salish name Tacoma, has an iconic presence here in the Pacific Northwest. While the volcano is covered in glaciers, the subalpine region surrounding it is one of the best places in the world to view wildflowers. With incredible natural beauty, it's not hard to see why this region of the park is called Paradise. For our final hike of the day, we traded the mountains for huge 1,000-year-old trees at the Grove of the Patriarchs. If you've never had the chance to experience an old-growth forest, it may be hard to understand all the emotions that being in one brings about. Maybe it's the sun peeking through the leaves, or the sheer scale of the trees that conveys a feeling of timelessness. Whatever the case, the forest invoked an overwhelming sense of awe and appreciation for this beautiful planet and the gift of life. Feeling physically exhausted but mentally rejuvenated, we silently said our goodbyes and continued our journey to Seattle. We began our first day in Seattle by enjoying some fresh air at Alki Beach. Now, I know the beach is probably not the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Seattle, but I highly recommend watching all the ferries cross the Puget Sound if you're looking for a relaxing way to start your morning. So we were trying to figure out what to do with the rest of the afternoon when we stumbled upon a cat cafe. As a group of cat lovers, there was absolutely no way that we were going to pass up this opportunity.
Enjoy yourself. It's a chunky cat. Oh, are you a runner too? See you?
NANI?!
Runner?
Hey, why you wake me up?
I woke him up by accident. I woke him up.
That's rude.
I know, I thought his eye was open. This one just likes to roam.
Just meet everybody. Oh, pig's twitch. Look. No? Yes? He's like, no, I'm good.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Okay, forgive me.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
While filming this video, I was in the process of applying to the University of Washington for graduate school. Luckily for me, I was able to convince my friends to tag along as I checked out the campus. Even though I didn't end up going to UW, it goes without saying that this is one of the most beautiful campuses in the country, and I'd love to come back during spring when the cherry trees are blossoming. To round off the day, we headed to Seattle's oldest neighborhood, the historic Pioneer Square, to enjoy the stunning 19th century architecture and grab a bite to eat. Yeah, I'm lost the bed.
They have hot dog water. Did you see it?
Ew. He almost the bed, he's gotta eat pepper. He's okay.
Nom 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 nom. Yeah, right?
The seventh day of the road trip was one that I was personally super excited for because we were visiting one of the oldest public markets in the country, Pikes Place. This market, which was founded in 1907, is the most popular tourist attraction in Seattle, and it also happens to be my personal favorite. Before the market existed, most farmers had to sell their produce through a third party, a practice which severely cut into their profits. The growing issue led to the designation of land near Pike Street as a public market for the sale of garden, farm, and food products. Today, the market is home to over 200 locally owned shops and businesses. Whether you're grabbing a bite to eat, watching the famous fish toss, or just walking around, there is so much fun to be had at Pikes Place. Needing a break from all the walking, we decided to grab a drink at Pier 57. We actually got to talking with our waiter at the restaurant, who just so happened to be from Reno, and he was actually nice enough to give us a delicious brownie sundae on the house, so shout out to him.
Does she come with her? Nice haircut. Hi. We love your dog.
We spent the remainder of the afternoon snacking on some mouth-watering elote corn,
It's cold!
exploring the area around the market, and throwing down some pickleback shots while we waited for dinner.
Can I try it? I don't think it's bad at all.
No, it's not like awful, but it's just like, it's pungent.
Tastes like olives. Oh, that's so good.
To close out the unforgettable day, we made our way back to the pier to enjoy a nice dinner at Elliot's Oyster House.
We gotta say grace, you guys. The entire trip is today.
Good. Let me try it.
Oh, this is really good. We got shrimp. Look at this.
Got you.
Good.
The next day, we were back on the road driving through the picturesque Washington countryside en route to our final destination. We actually had some very special plans for our last day, but before we can get into that, I think it's time we switched up the vibe. Ah, now that's better. Located on a cliffside 450 feet above the Spokane River sits the stunning Arborcrest Winery. We weren't really sure what to expect with this one since none of us had actually done a wine tour before, but the views were incredible, the wine was rich, and our guide was very knowledgeable.
So the ski lift. Oh, so if you go on a ski lift, you'll see Riblet above you, and he invented the first ski lift. As well as several other things, but that's one of the main ones. And we'll get into a little more of his.
The estate was actually built in the 1920s by an eccentric inventor named Royal Newton Riblet. Some of his patented designs included a pattern sprinkler system, a square-wheel tractor that you'll see here shortly, and, of course, the 3-story Florentine-style mansion overlooking the countryside.
So we were able to save some of it, but as you can see, this path right here used to not be here, the gravel road, so the fire trucks couldn't come up to put the fire out. So in 2009 it burnt. We were able to recover it. The exterior is the same, the windows looked like that when he built it in 24, but we were able to refurbish most of the outside with the rocks, but we redid the inside to more modern. Unfortunately, you can't rent it as an Airbnb. Most people ask that. And then the owners, the winemaker Christina and her family will sometimes gather here for events or parties, but it's really for wedding parties. So the bottom floor will be where the grooms and groomsmen gather. There's a fridge down there, so you know they have all the snacks. And the middle level will be like where families hang out, the mothers, fathers of the groom and bride. And then the top floor is where the bride gets ready. So they're separate. Yeah. And then he'll drive this in the winter, it still works. Yeah.
Wow.
I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard stories. He'll take it out for a spin.
The tour concluded with a complimentary charcuterie board and a flight of wines to taste. They also had some beer on tap and frosé for purchase.
Don't spill anything here, Neil.
Don't spill it. It's good frosé.
Arborcrest was a great place for our first experience with wine culture, and we could not have picked a better conclusion to this story. While I was sad to be heading home in the morning, I felt profoundly grateful that I got to share this memorable road trip with some of my favorite people. They honestly bring so much light into my life, and I cannot wait for our next adventure together. I think I speak for all of us when I say the Pacific Northwest will always hold a special place in our hearts. So with that said, thank you to Willow, Maddie, and Dion, thank you Pacific Northwest, and thank you for watching. Also, it's usually just me loading the car, so it's gonna take a while.
It's filming right now. Blue raspberry.
Doesn't exist.
Anybody want to get baptized right now?
What kind of food do you want?
I'm not for whatever.
Okay.
It's been a little smoky so far, but it's been a little smoky so far, but otherwise, it's beautiful.
No smoking, no vaping.
Uh-oh. It was my hand.
I'm gonna add some like cinematic music to the back of this. Like.
Bum, bum, bum.
I'm a bad bitch. You can't kill me.
Bye, have a great time.